So we are at 66 homeowners present, and we still have few people signing in.
I just see I do not know whether you have video. That's why I look at the video first. Video. Okay, wait.
We still have few homeowners who are trying to get into our meeting, who are kind of harder to identify. So that's what's taking a little bit longer. Apologies for that. Okay, I think we are ready to proceed. Perfect. We have everybody who was in the waiting room in the room. We are ready to proceed. I will start by introducing our RDH team, who graciously agreed to come here and let us know what to expect when we are going to be going through the construction process. So we have 4 members of the RDH team. We have Tom, Anthony, Paul, and John, and then we have Penny here to help us on all the questions and answers. Do the members of the RDH team wanted to introduce themselves individually?
We'll jump in. I've got a slide and we can definitely introduce ourselves as part of the presentation. Yeah, that's kind of how we lined up to do it. Is there anything else you wanted to go over, Michaela? Or?
I just wanted to ask everybody, thank you again, everybody, for coming. It's a nice afternoon. We really appreciate it that you are interested in this upcoming project. I would just like to ask everybody to please mute yourself until RDH is done with their presentations. We will then have question and answer sessions. Please submit your questions via chat as RDH is going through their presentation, so none of your questions are forgotten before we get to the question and answer session. And we will go through the chat and make sure that all of your questions are being addressed. Please, we will not be addressing any type of accounting questions or those. This is really, this meeting is really focused on the actual preparation, physical preparation for the work itself. And again, what to expect during the next 18 months when the work will be ongoing. And with that, I'm going to ask Tom to start.
Everyone, good afternoon and evening. Just want to start by following up with Michaela's comments. A big thank you for joining us this evening. We know everyone's busy. So having you attend is great, and it's great that you're showing an interest on what's going to be going on in the next couple of years. Also like to say a massive thanks to Michaela and Daryl. They have been pushing this along and getting the project ready for a long time now, as well as the board who volunteer their time and have been key to getting us to where we are now. So yeah, big thanks to all parties involved.
I'm just going to interrupt real quick. Michaela, there's someone who sent a message to the group. It sounds like they may have an issue with hearing and wants to know if this is going to be captioned. So
captioning was enabled. If they have captioning available, whenever I responded, captioning was enabled. So as long as they have it on their computer, they would be able to.
Want to make sure you saw the message. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
you. So a quick introduction to our team. Most of whom we have on the call. There's one member who isn't, but we have Paul Duffy, who's project principal and a senior project manager with RDH. Are you there, Paul?
Yep, I'm here. Good to see everybody. Looking forward to the presentation.
And me, I'm the project manager. I've been driving schedule and budget and overseeing the project. So yeah, pretty involved and pretty familiar with what's going on. We've got Anthony Hart. He's a superintendent. He's going to be there on a daily basis, running the site and making everything's going as it should be. You want to say a quick hi, Anthony?
Hello, everyone. I'll be talking later on other slides, but I look forward to working on your guys' project. And Tom, your video's off, just so you know.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Anthony. We have Penny Short, who is key to the project. She keeps the cogs greased behind the scenes and makes sure everything is running and everything is where it should be when it should be. You want to say a quick hi, Penny?
Hi, everybody.
And then we've got John Bolick, who's the architect of record. He has been pushing the project through design, making sure everything ties together as it should, doing the drawings, writing the specifications. You there, John?
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
And Stephen's not actually with us tonight, but you will see him out on site. He's going to be doing the periodic sort of visits to site to document what's been done, make sure all the materials and the systems are being installed as they should be. So he's going to be a pretty familiar face. Okay, jumping into the project, Canyon and Roundabout Rehabilitation Project. We've got 2022 this year. It's phase 1, and we're focusing on the canyon in phase 1. Now this, the highlighted blue area, this is a canyon which runs between the townhomes. You can see 10th Street, which runs along the top here, and Tower 1 off to the left. So hopefully that orientates you. But yeah, this blue area is focused for this year, and we're replacing the waterproof membrane which runs underneath the pavers and underneath the stone walls. So that's phase one. And then in 2023, we're going to be moving into phase two. And this green section here is phase two. You can kind of see, you see the bigger green line, and just inside that painter line behind, that's the roundabout. And then we've got the lobby entrances over here and over here. So this is going to be phase two. And in phase two, we're going to be focused on rehabilitating that same waterproof membrane on the roundabout and the fountain. And in phase two, we're also going to be going into the parking garages. We've got some crack repair to do and some waterproof work to do in there as well. In this meeting, we're mainly going to focus on phase two. I know there's a lot of interest, in phase one.
No.
I know there's a lot of interest in phase two. There's just
So
so
they're going
much.
to do this project in two phases. The first phase, they're going to put a new membrane under the canyon. Well, hell, they spent all that money and time.
Okay, so so this meeting's mainly going to focus on 2022. There's a lot to get through. There's a lot of material, and the 2023 is probably actually got more material to get through with the logistics of it. So in the interest of keeping this meeting within a couple of hours, maybe a little bit more, we're just going to focus on 2022. We'll do a similar meeting at the beginning of the 2023 project, and we will actually do a touch on what's going to go on in 2023 later in this presentation, just so you've got an idea. But yeah, main focus in the blue zone, phase one. Okay, so digging into it, phase one is the canyon. You see a nice photograph of the canyon here. It's a nice sunny day. Now, as I said, it's the aim of this project is to install a new waterproof membrane and install a waterproof silicone coating on the brick. So the waterproof membrane is going to go underneath all the pavers, and then we're going to be painting a clear coating onto this brick. And that's going to address the ongoing leaks that the community's been experiencing for the last few years. Okay. John's going to jump in as the architect and driving this through design. He's probably best positioned to speak to the next couple of slides.
Sure. Thank you, Tom. The buildings have been around for approximately 14 years. And during the course of the 14 years, RDH plus some other companies have been out on site. And what we discovered was that the waterproofing is located in certain pieces of the canyon, and it's not continuous throughout the canyon. So we've done some evaluation work, and what we're doing is this coming year in the canyon plus in 2023 in the roundabout is to essentially remove the waterproofing, install some new waterproofing, and make sure the waterproofing is continuous through the different layers and materials through the canyon, and eliminate the water issues that are showing up downstairs in the parking garage ceiling. The canyon and even parts of the roundabout, they're made up of many different layers. Maybe one way to think of it is, I said this earlier to my teammates, but a carrot cake. You just have many layers, and the waterproofing is near the top of that, and it starts and stops, and then there's parts that get interrupted, and so the waterproof doesn't continue. And those are the types of areas where the water is able to get into that canyon, all those assemblies. And over time, it can eventually make its way back down into the parking garage. Now, yes, it's been leaking for a little while, but we do want to stop this. If there's too much leaking, there may be some level of corrosion. So by stopping this, we're going to increase the longevity of that whole assembly down there. And we're also going to be using a different product. The new product is anticipated to last a little bit longer. And when it gets installed, it has a little bit of flexibility such that in the event there's minor movements in the canyon, this product's going to retain its water integrity and continue to serve as the barrier there. So that's kind of the quick summary of why we're doing it again. And then in thinking again about these different layers, as I had mentioned a moment ago, we're going to try to, well, we're going to connect those. So for example, in the photographs you see there, some of the pavers have been removed, and where the pavers are removed, you see a darker or a black product. That's the current waterproofing, or the cursor is there. When we did some test cuts and exploratory work, we observed water below the waterproofing. Shouldn't happen, but that's what was there. So as we continued to explore, we realized that, say, those brick walls that you see in the photograph, those brick walls actually continue down towards the parking garage ceiling. And unfortunately, that's where the waterproofing stops. And so you have these areas where the waterproofing starts and stops. And once we get the new waterproofing in, we'll connect that to the brick walls. And as Tom mentioned earlier, we're going to be putting a coating on the brick walls that's going to give some level of water resistance and waterproof. And then, as you remember, back in 2019, the majority of the planters inside the canyon were removed and re-waterproofed as well. So we're going to be connecting up to that new waterproofing. The end result is we do have a continuous line of waterproofing. It varies as you go through the canyon. We all know the canyon changes elevations. There's ramps, there's stairs, but the end result of this effort here is to connect all those layers of waterproofing and eliminate the water that comes down through the assembly and into the garage. The coatings, largely we're going to be underneath the pavers and some of the concrete, but where we do come onto the brick walls, it's going to be a clear product. And you may see it just a slightly darker color to it, and it probably would be equivalent to when it's raining and the brick gets wet. The bricks usually turn slightly darker, and when the coating goes on, that's going to be the result. But in general, the texture of the brick, how the bricks have different colors, all of that's going to be retained. The pavers themselves will be new. However, we're using the same quarry, and again, trying to maintain all the color and look and texture of what's there. One of the products, as I'd mentioned earlier, was the waterproofing that goes below the pavers, and how it's a different product. What was there previously was hot rubber. If we would go back to that product, it would take a little bit longer to install. You'd be smelling the hot kettles outside. This product that we're using is not going to have quite that aroma, and it's going to be quicker to install. And the warranty right now is we're 25-year warranty on that particular product. So that's a good warranty for the construction industry.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. So how are we going to do this work and replace this membrane? Just going to run you through what you can expect to see out of your windows. First of all, we're going to be removing all the railings, the seats, and the potted plants. By the railings, we're talking about the silver railings. Generally, the darker square railings will stay in place, though there are a couple of places where they will need to be removed. And the benches and the potted plants and the railings, they're going to be stored for reinstallation later. We're going to remove the pavers. So as John said, all of these multicolored pavers run all the way down the canyon. You can see them here and here and here. They're going to be removed. We're going to remove the stone walls. So you've got two types of walls. We've got this, which is we're calling the stone wall, and then you've got the brick walls. So the stone walls, this is all going to be stripped off with stone, so we can actually waterproof the CMU wall behind. And then we're going to be removing the concrete staircases and concrete paths and patios to the townhomes. So you can see here we've got concrete staircases and the patios, so they're going to be broken up. Once we've got those up, we can remove the existing waterproof below. And then we're going to go back and replace with a new poly rear that John was just talking about. And once waterproofing's in there and the brick walls have been treated with that silicon sealant, we're going to go back and install the finishes. Again, stone walls and the caps are going to go back in. The new pavers that match the existing pavers will go in. We'll be repouring the staircases, repouring concrete pathways, and all these finishes, they're going to match very closely, if not exactly, the existing in color, size, as well as texture. There's also a couple of other areas in phase one we just wanted to touch on as well. There's going to be, I should say, apologies, 5 planters, but there's 5 planters not completed previously, and these run in front and around townhome 14, 13, 12, and 11. So those will be excavated out and a new waterproof membrane is going to be put in those. And then, I don't know if you caught it, but when I moved, you can see the yellow area highlighted here and the yellow that runs along the top of this metal grill. And maybe you've not noticed it, but this is a vent shaft and this goes down into the garages and it's part of the ventilation system. So we have some waterproofing work to do inside there. It's not going to impact people the same way that the work in the canyon will, but we will be in there doing some additional work. We're going to be doing an investigation in the garage in 2022 as well. So the main scope of work currently planned for that's for 2023, but we do want to get in there and do some investigation into the post-tension cable system. That's kind of the reinforcement which runs through the concrete in the garage. So that's going to be going on within the next few weeks. So parking and the parking garages are generally going to be unaffected in 2022. When they start planning this investigation and exactly where they want to, drill into the slab and have a look in there, we might need might be a bit of traffic control, and it might impact a couple of people. But generally, parking will not be affected in 2022. Anthony, did you want to run through the site logistics?
Sure.
Let me just see if I can. Okay.
Hello, good evening. Again, this is Anthony Hart. I'll be the face of the project for the most part. I'll be the one that's on site daily, working with the contractors to complete the project. Am I controlling the slide or you?
It should be. There you go.
So the canyon will be an active construction site. If you look at the photo in the bottom right, this is a representation of when the canyon was originally constructed. And so that should show you potentially close to what it'll look like. This area will affect even your patios right up to your front door and sliders. I believe the only patio that we are not affecting is townhome 10. But we are working on the stairs of that townhome as well. For safety reasons, we will be blocking off the doors that enter into the canyon area. That way, because once construction starts, there'll be trip hazards and safety issues for non-construction staff. So we're going to attempt to alleviate all those safety issues just by simply closing down the canyon area during construction. I'll be working with the city of Bellevue to be able to make sure that there's a fire egress earthquake type of egress. So you have a way in extreme emergencies to be able to leave your units as well. We'll be working with the city of Bellevue to accomplish that. The doors will be blocked throughout the construction. So this is a representation of the view from 10th Street looking into the canyon. If you notice this red area, we will be putting site fencing up, and that's what this red area represents. Below that, there's a picture. This dotted red line represents where the fence will run. They'll run past the ventilation shaft and the 2 walkways to secure that from public access. We'll be installing barriers at both ends to protect the public and the residents from any type of safety issues. We will have a fenced storage area in the retail parking garage as well. That'll have a completely enclosed with a fence that's secured by a chain and a combination lock or key, which maintenance staff will be given the combination or key as well. The construction entrance will be at the south end of the canyon, and that's what this represents again is our fence line. This essentially will be blocked from view and be roughly the location of where our construction fence will be located.
5 o'clock.
Main entrances for the building during phase 1 will not be affected. We won't be blocking either entrance to Tower 1 or Tower 2. Portable toilets, dumpsters, job boxes, construction materials we will have behind the fence. They won't be in the roundabout open to the public, and they'll be screened from view as you're driving in or walking through to the dog area. This represents where we anticipate our fence line to be, this red dotted line. This shows restrooms and hand wash station. Our site entrance will be roughly in this area. There will still be room to pass in vehicles through the roundabout. At times we will have to shut that down as we're having materials or equipment delivered or the dumpsters being removed. We'll make sure to have someone out there to be able to help flag down pedestrians or vehicles so everyone's safe during those times.
Hey, Anthony, just so people know, that pink strip which goes around, that's the current roadway which goes around the roundabout there. So just to help you orientate yourself. And as you can see, it's usually about 20 feet. The way we currently have it, there should still be 10 to 12 feet left there. So you should be able to get vehicles through that area.
As a rough estimate, your normal lane of traffic is about 10 feet wide. So we should be able to have vehicles still be able to turn that area. As during construction, obviously the walkway and the paver area will be blocked by the fencing. So we'll ask people to cross from side by the dog park. Parking throughout 2022 will generally be ineffective. The investigations in the garage are in some of the drive lanes. One area we'll be in is the ramp that goes from L1 down to P1. And then the other investigations are in the other parking, the pay parking lot towards the west side of the building. So I will be on site utilizing the security office. It's by the entrance to the residential parking. We'll be on site at each day contractors are there. We will be there. Site hours will be from 7:30 to 5 p.m. Bellevue allows from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. to make noise. Our 7:30 will be a soft start. There'll be people rolling out tools, doing morning stretches, safety meetings and such. And then we'll start noise at 8 a.m. Any work that we find necessary to be outside of these hours, 7:30 to 5 p.m., we will actually work with Michaela and her staff to get notification out. Our work days will be Monday through Friday as well. Saturdays or Sundays, and anything after 5 p.m. will be notification that will be sent out through Michaela and her team.
So just to add to that, our intention is to stick within the work hours 100%. We don't want to be outside those work hours. We don't want to be working on Saturdays. If it becomes really, really necessary, if there's some down days due to weather, we might need to work outside those times. And as Anthony said, we will be giving advance notice and coordinating through your on-site management team. Cool. I'm going to jump back in. As I said, we will just touch on phase 2 quickly, go through the scope and upcoming impacts, but we don't really have to consider it too much until the next year. So the scope of phase 2 is we're going to be replacing that same waterproof membrane, except we're going to be moving down to the entrance to the canyon, so the roundabout area and the fountain area. We're going to be refurbishing the dog park as well. And then we're going to be in the garages. We're going to be doing some crack repair. You guys have had crack repair done previously in the garages. There's some new cracks which do need treating, so we'll be doing that. And we're going to be applying targeted waterproof coatings to seal up a joint in the concrete. So the impact for 2023, as you can see, we've got a picture of the parking spaces here. Now, the orange represents a 3-foot strip of this traffic coating, this waterproof coating we're going to apply. There's a joint in a concrete, it's a pullback strip, which comes about 2.5 feet out, and we need to seal that. So we're going to be doing a 3-foot strip out from the majority of the walls to seal that joint up. It does run through parking spaces. It does run through some storage lockers. So during the time when this work goes on, residents will need to vacate those areas so this work can be done. We do realize, it's going to be an impact, and parking spaces are important as well as storage units are important. We are planning with building management. We've been planning and thinking it through for a little while now, working on a plan. And then we will be getting that out to the affected residents well ahead of time. And again, this is not until 2023. Residents will be given lots of notice. So we are putting plans in place, and we will keep you updated. There'll also be impact for the roundabout and the building entrances. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of work going on. Both of the main lobby entrances will be affected. You will always be able to access those main lobbies. It will just be in a somewhat limited capacity. The sidewalks and the walking paths will be diverted at times as well. So there'll be lots of signage, there'll be flaggers, there'll be traffic plans in place. The dog park will be out of commission during this time as well. And the roundabout will not be usable. So the roundabout vehicles will actually be able to back in and perform a 3-point turn to get back out, but they will not be allowed or not be able to drive right the way around the roundabout at this time. A traffic control plan will be in place for this. The canyon will be usable. So at the end of phase 1, this year's work, the canyon will be reopened. The south entrance here, which is just at the bottom of this picture, it's going to be limited and will move where you can exit and enter it, but it will be usable. Okay, a little bit on the construction schedule here. We've got the red line is today, so 22nd of March. We're just coming to the end of the pre-construction work, so that's this yellow bit here. We're starting site mobilization, and construction's actually going to start in late April. So we're going to have demo beginning late April, and it's going to run through at the moment till October. The blue here is demobilization. We're not anticipating completely demobilizing from site. We will still have the site office there. We are anticipating completely demobilizing from the canyon. So it should be 100% in use, no construction materials left there. This little yellow bar here as well is for the PT investigation in the garage that we were discussing. It won't take 3 months. We're just coordinating exactly when it's going to go on. If it is going to affect you in any way, you will be notified. And as you can see, it's about an 8-month construction process. And then as we move to phase 2, it's very similar. We've got the site mobilization, as well as the green bar is the construction construction timeline, and then we've got demobilization running October, November time, and then December time is post-construction. We are anticipating, you know, a bit of documentation work and just some closeout, but the construction work should be done and dusted by then. Okay. Also, I'd just like to point out the gray in the middle. This is December to March. This is kind of, you know, the not good time to do construction or waterproofing work especially. So we will not be on site here other than having the site office, but we will have a much reduced presence during this time. The canyon will be in use, the parking garages will all be in use. So just to recap, what residents can expect through construction. So we will be erecting those fences in those areas that Anthony ran through earlier. And you can see this is kind of what we're anticipating, something similar to this. We've got the fence and then we've got a privacy screen behind it. So it will hide the dumpster, it's going to hide the toilets and the construction work going on. We will have no pedestrians, or we can't have any pedestrians in the canyon. It's just not safe. So it's going to be shut down for pedestrian traffic, whether it's residents or members of the public. And as we said, there'll be no access from the townhomes out onto the canyon either. There's going to be construction noise. We're demoing concrete. We wish it could be quieter. Unfortunately, it is a noisy process. It will impact the residents, especially people in close proximity. The units, the townhomes which run up this, run up the side of that canyon, they're going to be affected the most. When we are breaking out the patios and the staircases next to those townhomes, it's going to be pretty loud. There's no way around it. We'll do our best to, get it done as quickly as possible, but it will rattle. Will be very loud inside those units. We'd also recommend that if there's paintings, things of value which are up on the walls, which face onto the canyon, that those are removed before construction. We'll be sending out a little notice via Michaela, just as a reminder of that point. There's also going to be some smells and dust breaking concrete. There's going to be a lot of dust flying around. Applying some of these products, the polyurea and other items, it's got a certain aroma. These are not hazardous to your health, but you will smell them. Some people find them offensive. We would recommend that you keep your windows closed, especially during construction hours. It will stop dust coming in. It will limit those smells coming in as well. If you need to open them after construction's finished, we have no issue at all with that. But we would definitely recommend that they're closed during construction hours. And then following on to that, we'd also, if you want privacy, we will have construction workers up on those patios doing work. So we'd recommend that you close your curtains or blinds during that time as well. You'll also see people, they will be putting bits of plywood and protection up against the window. When you chip concrete, little chips can fly up and we don't want them hitting the windows. So there'll be plywood lent up against your windows. We're not trying to trap you in or like block your view. We're just trying to protect the buildings. And then back to, the townhomes that face onto it, they will be blocked. We're going to block those doors for the duration of the project. We are working with the fire marshal to see exactly what is required there. But in anything other than an extreme emergency, we really cannot have people coming out. Not to just, go out for a breath of fresh air on the patio. The surface is going to be uneven. There's risk of injury. So it's going to be, the construction area is completely off limits. So construction hours will be 7:30 to 5. Noise will start at 8 a.m. That'll be compressors. It's going to be pretty noisy at 8 a.m., especially at the beginning of the project when we are doing demolition. That will likely be the noisiest point of the construction process, but there will be noise throughout the full duration. And I know the community's been through a few projects already. You will see you'll see construction workers around, as well as some additional construction traffic through the community. Okay, and then just a reminder, we will be starting imminently. Anthony's setting up his site office out there next week. We'll start seeing fences going up in early April, and then we will be looking to get going on demolition mid to late April. Construction will be phased. It'll be phase 1 in 2022, and phase 2 will be in 2023. And each phase is going to take approximately 8 months. The site will be secured every night. Everything will be padlocked. Toilets will be locked up. The site office will be locked in non-work hours as well. Okay, and then we also do have a couple of requests from residents during this time as well. If you have questions and comments, if you can direct them to Michaela, she's best positioned to answer any questions that you have. She's going to have the overall picture, and she'll be able to give you the most complete answer. Get you the information you need. Our construction workers and the guys on site will often not have the complete picture, and you might get bad information or just wrong information, and it will assist in not slowing the process down. We will have signage around the site. It's there for a reason. It's required by L&I, and it is a good thing to have safety signs there. Please obey the signage. Please be aware of the signage. And can't stress it enough, please do not access the construction area in anything other than those emergencies like a fire. Please stay out of the construction area. And then there's going to be areas which are not the construction area, but they're going to be pretty close to the construction area, like the roundabout in phase 1. There is a site right next to it. There will be vehicles coming and going. There will be workers around there. So just please be cautious and aware when you're moving through that area. If you see any construction equipment and materials, and construction equipment and materials should generally be inside the fence or inside the storage area. There should be very, very few occasions when there's something not within the fence or within our storage area. If there is, if you do come across something, please leave it alone. We don't want anyone getting hurt or anything along those lines. If you think it's been left there and forgotten, I mean, that shouldn't happen, but please notify Michaela. And she will let us know, and we will deal with it ASAP. And we do request your patience during this time. It's a critical project. We do need to get it done. We don't want water penetrating that slab and causing any further problems. We do realize it's going to be a noisy project. It's not a fun thing to have going on right next to you. And we will do everything we can to mitigate impacts to you. But we do request just a little bit of patience and grace while we get this completed. Cool. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. I know we had some questions submitted before the meeting, which I think Penny is going to pose and the team can answer, and then we can jump into a Q&A.
Sure. So the first one was a concern that was presented to us, which was, what if after the repairs are complete and there is movement and ground settling because of all the construction that is happening around us?
Sorry, let me just stop sharing the screen so we can have our faces up. Okay, so the waterproofing really needs to be done, and John can probably speak to this as well. But you have a PT slab, which is the post-tension cable slab underneath the plaza there, and we don't want water getting in and damaging those PT tendons. Then we're into a whole lot more money and a whole lot bigger project. So it's important we get this done as soon as we can. Construction in Bellevue is not slowing down. It's speeding up, if anything. There's going to be buildings going up for, I don't know, the next 20 years, probably longer. So we're going to get movement and settling happening. If we were going to wait until everything was finished, I think we'd run into a lot bigger problems with the water penetrating the PT slab.
You know, something else I might add to that, Tom, it's good thoughts. I think there's a valid question. You know, certainly you feel things in your homes as you're, you know, you'll feel it even as we're doing the concrete demolition. You know, some things can be done to address some of those areas, to understand whether some of the foundation walls and things like that are showing any other signs of cracking. I know that in the past we have done photographs and videos of foundation walls and other areas that may be a potential concern, and have put monitoring gauges across existing cracks. We've chatted with Michaela about that. It's not a real expensive thing to do. And so those things can be done to the foundation walls just to monitor them. And something that the association can do rather than, you know, trying to impose that on a neighboring property that we think might be causing the problem, so that we have track of that data. So I think it's a really good question. And those are some of the things that we would think would be an appropriate thing to do.
So then the next question that came to us was, why not do both the canyon and the roundabout at the same time?
Tom, I could take a stab at that one. You know, both the projects, as Tom's schedule showed, they're both about 8 months long. Our primary concern in trying to do this work in the summer is because it's very water sensitive type of work. As you can imagine, doing waterproofing, we'll want to do that when it's dry. And Tom mentioned that it's raining. There might be there will be some days that we won't want to do the waterproofing. If it's really hot, that may be another time that we want to wait on doing the waterproofing because of this material needing to be waterproofed installed at 75 degrees or less. So there may be times where we need to ask the board if we could do some work at night, those kinds of things, just to keep the progress going. But The duration of the project, about 8 months. The canyon is the biggest area. So that's why it's taken that long. The roundabout isn't as large, but it's a really complicated area. As you guys know, the circular roundabout, managing that traffic, it's going to be incorporated in with the actual garage repairs, which will be a complicated process to do. So we just anticipated that each of those projects were going to take about that much time, 8 months or so. And we wanted to have a gap in between, that we weren't doing work that would be so weather sensitive that would probably cause delays. I hope that answers your question.
So this next question has to do with a lot that's been in the news lately. Assuming concrete will be needed, if the strike is not settled, will you hold off on starting the project?
I can jump in there. So, yet we've been monitoring the concrete strike, as everyone has been in our industry. You know, it's definitely impacted a lot of the projects. We've been checking in with a lot of our contacts in the concrete industry as well. And the most recent rumblings are concrete starting to move in some capacity. Some people have actually not stopped pouring the whole way through as well. There are some plants which are still operating and delivering concrete. That being said, we also, and everyone in the industry is pretty sure it's coming to a close as the construction season's beginning. They do, you know, it's in everyone's interest to get everything agreed and move forward. That being said, you know, we have discussed this, and so the concrete is due to be poured in about 4.5 months, so 4.5, 5 months. So it's going to be an August pour date. So by that time, we are pretty confident that everything will be resolved and most of the backlog will have been pushed through. We also have September. So if it needed to push out a little bit more, we can push the concrete pour into September. September is still a good weather month. It's pretty reliable for dry weather. So we do have that buffer in there. If we need to switch a few things around and pour a little bit later, we can do that as well. So with those sort of thoughts in mind, we definitely think it's a good idea to carry on pushing forward. The impact to the budget by delaying it by another year, especially with inflation, would drive costs up more than if we have to pay a premium to get the concrete. So yeah, definitely been thinking about it, and I know you've been thinking about it as well. The board have definitely been thinking about it, but for the moment we think moving forward is the best option for the schedule as well as financially for the community.
You know, I may also mention, Tom, that strike's been going on since December. So it's already about 3 months in. So we do feel pretty confident that it's a good thing for us to keep moving forward, because we're seeing some of that movement that Tom's talked about, and it's already gone a long time. So since we're 4.5, 5 months away, it seems appropriate. Keep moving forward and trying to get this done as cost effectively as possible, as quickly as possible.
So then the next question, how much time contingency is built into the stated timelines?
Anthony, did you want to jump into that one?
Sure. So we've worked roughly 2 to 3 weeks into contingency. We're working our best to head that off as far as having contractors get their supplies now and their materials. That way, any long lead items, they have their time enough to procure all those. Realistically, our contingency is going to be faced with, when we're doing the waterproofing, what the weather is that time, because we'll be early summer, so we can potentially have those rains that will come through, and it'll lead potentially in a hotter time. So if we have real hot days, we can mitigate for that. So that was our two main concerns looking at this project were the material lead times and weather. All of our contractors we've selected have a lot of experience in their field and are good at what they do and have been consistently able to perform the work. So we've mostly been concerned about the two, and we figure that would be an effective contingency time. So.
In addition to that, we've been meeting with the contractors together so that with them talking to each other with us as well, where one is starting and another is finishing, so, or coordinating between, so that we make sure that the times that we're putting into the schedule don't have a lot of float in them, don't have a lot of wiggle room. And we're getting agreement and buy-in with contractors early on in the process. We still have an opportunity to, like Tom mentioned, to, if something happens, to still get the work done and not have long delays. But we really are scheduling the project with contractors so it's thought out properly without having a lot of gaps of time that we're letting them know that we're anticipating it could take longer. We're trying to keep it tight so that that it's coordinated well and they know they can make it. If there's acts of God kind of things like rain or things that cause the project to need to be stopped for some day or two, that's very appropriate. Our main criteria, this is really a waterproofing job to protect the structure, both the rebar that's in the slab and the post-tension cables, the PT cables that Tom's been talking about. That's what this is really all about. And the quality of the work is so much more important to us than just trying to save a week or something like that. So we will, there'll be quality control measures that'll be going on for the waterproofing work and all of that. So if there is something wrong, we want to catch it, stop the work and say, guys, we need to fix this. John and his team will be doing that. Tom and Anthony will be driving the schedule and the subs to get the work done properly. And John and the field review team from RDH Building Science will be doing the quality control checks during construction based on the design work that they've implemented. And all of the guys have bid.
So you kind of answered this, the next question in a roundabout way, which was, how do you ensure deadlines are met?
Okay, yep. Well, we have the schedule that Tom shows is a very big macro schedule. Anthony's put together a medium range schedule that shows what's happening every week. And from that, we will build basically a 3-week look ahead schedule that we'll be meeting with the contractors and talking with them about to see how does the short range schedule meet with the overall big picture schedule so that we keep both the micro and the macro in mind as we're seeing the project progress from one stage to the next.
And then the last pre-meeting question we had been given was, can a detailed weekly update be given to those of us who will be most impacted?
Sure. I think Michaela is probably best positioned to drive that and decide what needs to be shared or what's best to sort of issue to the residents. She does a great job of all of that, and we will definitely be available to assist where needed. But I think Michaela's probably best positioned for that one.
And like Paul had stated, we'll be utilizing a 3-week look ahead that we'll provide to Michaela so she can distribute to tenants.
Then would you guys, Michaela, would you like me to read through the questions that came through in the chat, or would you like to do so?
Would you like to read through them and just try to filter? There's plenty of them, I know that. So.
Yes, there's quite a few. Let's see. So first question was, is there any duplication of the work that was completed in the canyon in 2020?
So that's going back to the work that we have done with the landscape renovation, and those are mainly the planter beds. John, would you like to answer that question?
Unmute yourself first, John.
A short answer is no, no repeat. There will be 5 new planters in this work that were not part of the previous scope, but otherwise no repeat.
And then in 2023, the roundabout planters will be affected, but those were not part of that work as well.
True. Yes.
And then they had asked, how long will you last? Since you mentioned it will last a bit longer. This is when you were first describing the work in 2022. For this year, you'd said that it was going to last a bit longer. So they were asking how long was it good? Oh, you actually, sorry, I remember this. I think they were saying, you said that this work will last longer than the last work is.
The hot rubber, I believe, compared to
Yes.
the polyurea.
So they're asking now, how long will this last, since you said it will last longer?
John,
Yeah, which
I think they're asking what the difference between the hot rubber and the durability of the hot rubber. And the poly. I think I'm not 100% sure, but
Yeah, I think it was under the pavers,
I believe so.
the work under the pavers.
okay. When it comes to warranties, the products aren't too much different. The polyurea, which is what we're going to be using this year, does have a slightly longer warranty period, but the expected lifespan is definitely longer than the hot rubber. So when we first started conversations with these various potential suppliers, 20 years was generally the warranty period, but we were told that the duration, the life expectancy would probably be even longer, close to 30 years or possibly even longer than that. They won't warranty beyond 30 years, but again, the lifespan is expected to be about that long.
I guess maybe I'll add to that the board has selected the longest warranty that is offered by this manufacturer, which is 25 years for the waterproofing underneath the concrete, in the pavers, and in the planters. Then that is the material warranty. Then there's a labor warranty, and I believe that's 5 years. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And that's kind of typical in the construction industry for a waterproofing or roofing type of product in terms of a labor warranty.
and just to add to that, the hot rubber, the failure in the hot rubber there was bad design. It wasn't just purely the product. If it had been installed correctly, it would have lasted longer.
I guess to add that as well, we will have reps from the Henry's product that we're installing. They will be on site during the installation to guarantee that the work has been installed properly, as well as we have testing that will adhesion testing that will be done as well during the installation.
That's a good point, Anthony. There's also another inspection method that will be used with low voltage. It's called electronic leak detection, that will also be done in sections to electronically test if there's any penetrations through the waterproofing before the waterproofing is covered up.
Then there's been a question, why do the pavers need to be replaced?
So there is an option to, the pavers need to be removed. So they do have to be removed. There is an option to reinstall the existing pavers. The decision was taken to install new pavers. So sometimes it's good to have I guess there might be some damages and scratches when those pavers are removed. So new, sometimes better than reinstallation. But yeah, it was an option. It has been discussed, but new pavers were selected.
Oh, yeah. We'll leave it at that.
Is the garage ceiling going to be repainted?
In the areas where we'll be refinishing cracks and sealing them, yes, that is in the scope of work to repaint those ones.
And then our schedule will address this a little more specifically, but from which dates to which dates will the townhome doors be locked? And we will try to be as specific with you guys as possible in our schedule, and also as we get with the fire marshals, so that you guys will know exactly the details for this, but I'll let you guys do more detail.
So those doors will be locked for the duration. While there's fencing up and while that's a construction zone, those doors will be locked, blocked. Yeah, there'll be no access out there. It's a construction zone, and it's just a safety hazard having people out there. So yeah, anticipate from when we start putting those blue fencing up, so we'll put the fences either end of the canyon, and the second job is going to be blocking the doors. I apologize, my camera keeps flicking on and off. But yeah, so it will be from early April all the way through till October, November time.
Will RDH staff need to park in our guest parking during the working hours?
Michaela, I want to lean to you to answer this, but I will say that the first stall directly outside of the security office, I think from time to time we'll utilize for staff that'll be there. Like Penny's planning on being there, I think 2 days a week. And so I think for those 2 days, we utilize that one spot in that area. Michaela?
Yes, we actually have 2 parking stalls available for you in the garage as well that can be utilized. You know, that would be inside the garage, not in the visitor parking.
Penny, there was one question that was missed. It said, do you mean 7 days a week when you say daily? And daily is going to be 5 days a week, Monday through Friday.
Yeah, I did miss that one just because we kind of addressed it while we were talking. Tom had kind of addressed it at the same time and had mentioned it was Monday through Friday, that we weren't going to work weekends. Yeah. So this also regards to parking. Will alternate parking be made available? I have 2 vehicles.
Are we talking in 2023? I'm assuming we're talking in 2023.
I'm assuming, yes. I'm assuming they're looking at 2023 when we're dealing with the parking garage and the work in the garage where we're having people move their vehicles.
So we're currently in the planning process with Michaela and with the board. We'll provide more information as we finalize those details. It will be provided well ahead of time, just so everyone's aware of what's being provided and when stuff has to happen. So please bear with us on that. We will be given ample notice. So
yes, we're looking at options. Will the 2023 work coincide with the hotel building construction across from Top Pot?
Currently, we're not aware of what their schedule is. I will be reaching out to Skanska, which is I believe the general for that project, and they have an office there on site. That way we can coordinate between the two, and I'll have their contact information as well as they will have ours. And at that time, we'll ask for a schedule of what they anticipate during time of our construction.
All right, I'm going to skip down on one and I'll come back to this one just because this one's related. How much communication have you had to coordinate with other building projects adjoining us?
Same. When I move on site next week, I was going to make that connection with that team on next door.
Very good. And then will the building be providing somewhere for townhome owners to store patio furniture? This is going to be all about Michaela and Daryl probably.
As we all know, there really is no alternative storage that the building has. So we will look through options, but right now, as a community, we do not have storage rooms available. we will look for alternatives as we are going preparing.
Next question. Previous work to seal garage cracks did not stop all leakage. Will this be rectified with this new work? Anyone?
The I'll jump in. Just going back to something I had said earlier and something Tom had said earlier, they didn't, the building was constructed one way, designed a different way. We're connecting the dots. Our intention is to find all the breaches as we're going through this and repair them. So that is definitely our goal. But as I had mentioned earlier, there's also a lot of assemblies, there's a lot of layers. And, we're there. We're going to be testing it and connecting all the dots. So yes, that's our plan, is to eliminate all the water leaks.
Very good. Okay, this is a good question. Will 1099 tax forms be available for the special assessment amount that we paid?
think
Not
that's,
specifically, because 1099 would, again, you can use your monthly billings. The association doesn't provide 1099 for any regular monthly assessment, and the special assessment is yet another form of assessment. So no, there is no plan to issue 1099s.
Next question is, are you going to refinish the front doors if they get marred?
I believe that,
sorry.
I was gonna say, I believe that Tom spoke to this earlier and talked about plywood that they'll be utilizing while chipping concrete. While working in that area, there'll be different plans they'll use, whether it be plastic to cover areas, plywood to protect. As the contractors work through the project, we've already had discussions with them about protecting surfaces that will be left in place. So there will be due diligence to protect everything that's there.
And if damage occurs to some of the finishes, yes, we will be asking them to repair those.
I do want to point out, though, that we're looking at a building that's at least already 14 years old. Some of those guardrails in the canyon are scratched up, dinged up. So, absolutely, if we damage something, we're going to fix it. But just also bear in mind that there are already some blemishes on the finishes that are out there.
Anthony, could you speak to that in terms of your photo and video survey that you've done?
So I went through last week and took photos of every patio, all the walkways, including the city walkways in our area that we'll be working through construction. I'm also going to go through take a video as well and point out and talk to different damages or different conditions that stuff is currently in. But like was said, this is a building that's been around for about 14 years, and different markings have occurred in the canyon, on the railings and the walls, and we know what the Bellevue City sidewalk looks like as well. It's off of the site we'll be working, so there has been some history and some wear and tear, but we'll definitely do our due diligence not to add to anything for sure, and anything like we do that Paul said, we'll be looking at repairing and having our contractors repair their damages, which we're hoping won't occur.
I think we'll probably be getting back to you on this one. Does the board know timeframes for the hotel project on the block, and will there be any traffic conflicts? I believe, Anthony, you'll probably be getting back to us on that one once you get on site and get more details for us.
Yes.
From the project. So to be determined. Okay, so I know we were actually discussing this earlier today. So this, Anthony, I think is something you can probably answer. The question is, will we be able to use our second floor patios?
The only doors we'll be blocking off are to your concrete patios on the lower levels. Your second, and I believe the townhomes on the east have a third patio. Those will be unaffected by construction. Potentially when you're out on those though, you will have to anticipate during construction noises, potentially smells, and things of that nature.
There will be dust up on those patios as well, so please be aware that if you're storing stuff out on those patios, they could end up coated in dust.
Can we have a page on the Washington Square website with daily updates on what is going on with the work, where specifically they are working that day and what they are doing?
That was like I spoke to earlier. We'll have a 3-week look ahead that we'll give to Michaela. How she distributes that's something she'd have to answer.
We will be continuing with a similar type of a distribution. We have the information posted on the website, sent to the homeowners. If it's something that really requires an immediate attention, it's posted in the lobbies. So we will continue with the same format.
Very good. So the next question is, so are you going to have to replace all the plantings in the canyon?
For the main canyon, so we point out the 5 planters that were not previously repaired up on the upper level on the east side of the canyon, and then the 2 that are in the roundabout that were not previously repaired. All the ones that are on the lower level in the canyon, we will not, that have already had work done to them, those ones are staying as is. I've also been in communication with the current maintenance staff, landscape maintenance staff, and we will be scheduling them and making sure they can get in during the duration of the project to water and weed and maintain those areas.
Why did we spend all the time and money on the canyon in 2019 just to rip it up again?
The work in 2019 was the planters, particularly the ones that are on the ramps and stairs as you go from the roundabout north. And those planters are going to remain, those plants will remain in there as well. And that's what Anthony had said a moment ago, is that those are going to continue to be cared for and watered. It's on the east side, townhomes up that basically 1-story level there's a couple planters up there that have never been touched. It's part of the original construction, and those planters will be included in the scope of work this year. So the 2019, it's all staying. We're not touching it.
Okay. The roundabout is key for deliveries, ride share, USPS, etc. If we don't have that area for these activities, then the regular 2-way street will be greatly impacted by traffic. Can you keep that 10 to 12 foot open in the roundabout?
During phase 1, we talked about that. We will keep the 10 to 12 foot lane open as much as possible. It will only be temporarily shut down throughout construction to move materials in to and from the site.
It's just that roundabout work in and of itself, that whole area, all of the concrete and the pavers, unfortunately, Sarah, has to come up to be able to replace the waterproofing. In particular, some of the parking stalls and the storage areas directly under that roundabout area are just getting inundated with water. And so you're right, it will be a large coordination issue. However, that 10 to 12 foot open area that Tom and Anthony are going to have open while doing the canyon will have to all be ripped up and replaced while they're doing phase 2 in the roundabout. So we've got to figure out how that's going to wind up working for deliveries, for the fire truck. There's a bunch of coordination that needs to be done in that area to try and make sure that works out well. And it'll be hard. There's no 2 ways about it. It's not going to be normal.
I'm going to jump down just because this is kind of related, and then I'll go back up. I remember Michaela saying the center part of the roundabout was not construction to withstand the weight of cars. Are you going to be reinforcing it to hold the weight of cars?
I assume that that's talking towards the mortar set pavers. We have to allow for the fire department to be able to make that roundabout, that turnaround. So I believe that we're planning on accommodating them on that area. But as we're leaving a 10 to 12 foot area in the normal drive lane, we shouldn't anticipate anyone being on that portion of the roundabout. The only time we would anticipate that is potentially a fire department, paramedics, something of that nature that would need the turning radius for their large vehicle.
I guess as well, we're not anticipating structural upgrades. We are repairing if needed. And when we get into that PT and have a look, if it needs to be repaired, it will be repaired. But we're not anticipating, increasing the capacity of any of that area.
And let me add too, because I talked about the pavers and mortar set, the slab that's underneath the drive lane and that center area are connected. It's the same slab throughout with the same PG cables. So that's why I only spoke to the top portion of the materials there.
If the resident rents the unit, anything the owner should pass to them regarding the project and construction?
If the resident isn't on the call, I would recommend they watch a recording. This will give them a lot of good information. We'll also be providing a PDF of this presentation so they can read through it. I think anyone, especially if there's residents who are not attending, who are in the townhomes which run along the canyon, I think it's pretty important for them to get this information in this presentation.
And for everybody's benefit, we have invited both the residents and the owners to this meeting, because I believe it's extremely important that the residents are made aware of what's going to be, what the project is going to be.
Perfect.
Agreed. And Michaela's, she's probably said already, but the presentation will be available and in both the video form and the PDF for people's review who can't attend.
Okay. What is the guarantee on the work you are doing?
I think we spoke to that in terms of the warranty for the waterproofing. The manufacturer's warranty is 25 years. The labor warranty for the waterproofing is 5 years. In existing building construction like this, as opposed to new construction, typically individual trade contractor warranties is 1 year. And so therein is the importance of our intention of going through with the quality control checks that we're doing. They're really quality assurance and not trying to push the schedule too hard, but to just be consistent with it and do the waterproofing checks that we'll be doing. That's just generally, we will have, once the job is over, as Tom pointed out in his schedule, there's a project closeout section. We will be getting warranties and guarantees from each of the contractors that are doing the work, so that we can hand that off to Michaela and Daryl. And so they'll have those, as well as operations and maintenance types of things that they could be using in the future.
Okay. As inflation is generally high in the country, how does RDH procure materials to avoid construction costs as they rise up later in the project?
When we bid the project out, Tom and Anthony had a schedule very similar to the one that they showed you that indicated when the work was going to be done. And we asked the contractors to price this accordingly. That doesn't mean that they won't have some things that are beyond their control. To be perfectly honest with you guys, as you probably known out there just purchasing things like steel and things related to oil, those change in our marketplace quite a bit. So we've asked the guys to hold their prices. but we also recognize that there are some things that aren't happening right now that are going to wind up impacting that. We've made some provisions in the budget to account for that. And when I say the budget, this is the budget that RDH is working with the association board on to manage the whole project, individual trade contractors and things like that. So inflation is a part of that, as well as unforeseen conditions. Anthony and Tom were talking about the post-tension cables. We don't really know how many post-tension cables may have a problem with them. That's the purpose of our doing the investigation this summer, so that the repair work could be scheduled for next year. And if it's in such a way that we should do them this year, then we can. But inflation is one piece of the work. Another is just making provisions for areas that we know that there's going to be some work needed, but we just don't know how much. And so we've taken that into account as well in the overall project budget.
Okay. Are you the same company that did the work in the canyon in 2019, 2020?
So the work was, REH assisted with coming up with a scope of work for the canyon in 2019, 2020. It was an emergency response to problems that we found out during the landscape renovation, but it was Porter. It was a completely different vendor who did the actual work in that time. So no, it's not the same company.
Okay. Thank you, Michaela. Next question is, I work from home and have many Zoom calls each day. How much notice will I have when noise will prevent me from working at home?
We'll be providing a 3-week look ahead, like I said. So hopefully that gives you enough notice. Examples of potential, obviously during noises during demolition will generally be pretty loud because we'll have jackhammers, sledgehammers, moving materials off site. But during the course of the rest of the project, there will still be noises such as generators, air compressors. So it'll be an effect throughout the project. Now the levels of how loud things will change from time to time. But potentially during demolition will be the loudest time, which is early in the project.
So just following up on that, it's concrete demolition is a noisy, messy process. The buildings or the units that are closest to the work, you're probably going to feel it as well as hear it. Having Zoom calls and things along those lines will be very difficult, maybe impossible at times to be able to be heard. I wish it was different, but I also don't want to, set you up expecting something that it's not going to be. As Anthony said, the demolition is the noisiest part. There's still going to be noise throughout the whole process. It will impact units, and it's going to impact. I know working from home is a commonplace nowadays. It is going to be difficult at times, and that will happen throughout the whole process. So, yeah, we do apologize in advance, but we do want you to be aware as well.
Next question is, I understand the brick used on the building is no longer available. How will that impact the work to the brick?
We've been working with the mason on the brick repair work. Some bricks will need to be, that are cracked, will need to be replaced. We will have access to some bricks. There's not a lot that have cracked. There are cracked mortar joints that we will be what's called tuck pointing, taking those out, removing the brick and placing it again in a new joint. So we'll wind up continuing to work with the brick mason to work through those areas. And fortunately, there's not a lot of cracked brick.
Can you provide residents with the slides used in this meeting?
Yep, we will be providing a PDF, and I think Michaela's recording it, so that will be made available.
Yes.
Since Townhome 10 patio is staying intact, can you please leave us access to our patio?
Unfortunately, at this point, no. We are working right up to it with the staircase. There's going to be construction debris, dust. We just can't have residents out. That would be part of the construction area, and inside kind of the danger zone. If anything changes and we are able to let people out, we'll let you know. But at the moment, no. Please anticipate those areas will be out of or off limits.
Can the storage units be covered with plastic on top to avoid dust and water damage?
During the work in the garage, we've talked to that contractor, and we've expressed the need to control their dust and any type of debris as they work. So they've talked about putting up plastic barriers and such, and using vacuums and to cut down on any type of dust or water damage from doing their work. So
This is a good question. We should have addressed this. We probably will next year. Will any of the work in the garage affect the private garages?
So yeah, there are also the storage units and the private garages. So some of the coding work will go through storage areas and the garages. The residents who have those units will be notified ahead of time. But yes, some will be affected.
Maybe a good thing to bring up is the reason there is traffic coding going in some of the parking garage areas. And it's basically the perimeter of the parking stalls around the outside of the concrete walls. And that's because the post-tension cables were tensioned at that 4-foot or 3-foot area. And then the concrete floor was installed afterwards. And we want to make sure that water is not getting to those post-tension cables at all. In particular, they are the stressing points for those post-tension cables, which has like 33,000 pounds of tension at the end of the cable. It's really important to you guys that area of the parking garage gets traffic coding and a sealant joint over the transition between the original and the new that pour strip concrete area. So we'll have it at the several areas that are exposed parking stalls, as well as people have some enclosed parking garages, and other people have enclosed storage rooms. And all that material is going to have to come out of there. That's some of the coordination that Tom and Anthony and Michaela and Daryl are working through right now for next year.
Given our dire parking spot shortages, should we not try to figure out how to add additional parking spots?
I think other than already there, this might be a question for Michaela and the on-site management.
Yeah, I think that's beyond the scope of
Yeah.
Of our meeting here. I don't think we'll be able to address that.
Right, redesigning the parking area to add additional parking stalls would be a real challenge. And I know that when the developer was looking on the best and most practical options for them, that they already considered the options, and we already tried to be creative with adding parking where we could. So we can definitely explore it further, but currently the parking stalls as designed. And again, please remember that every homeowner here owns that easement. So reshuffling the parking stalls through the community would likely require an approval of 100% of the owners, which will be interesting.
Well, I will jump in here. I'm Bruce Carlson, on the board of the Homeowners Association, and I would a lot of our discussions are recognizing that for those people who are affected, it may require that for a temporary period of time, the time frame that your particular spaces would be affected, that we would find an alternative for, so you might get shuffled to a different space if we can make those kinds of things available on a short-term basis. They aren't going to be doing the whole project in the garage at the same time, maybe X number of stalls at a time. So it's sort of a moving target. It's not going to be impactful to the whole thing, at least as I understand it. And the same thing is true of any storage units or any of the enclosed garages. So this is the nature of the discussions at this point, that we're trying to make accommodation. And although there will be some interruption or some inconvenience, we're trying to minimize that. And I think that's the tenor of a lot of the work that's gone into this between RDH, what they understand about the project, and certainly Michaela, Daryl, and the board.
Thank you. Are there any parking spots available in the building that were not sold with units that you could acquire for furniture storage?
No, there are no unsold parking stalls. All the parking stalls in the end were sold by the developer. So there are no additional parking stalls available for sale. We do have a large storage area available that we just recently cleared, that was originally owned by the developer, that was transferred to us. So we do have a storage area that can possibly be used, but no, we don't have currently, other than the 7 visitor parking stalls and the 2 parking stalls that will be transferred to the association ownership, hopefully in the next month or so. The association doesn't own any parking stalls in the building.
Which level or levels of the parking garage will be impacted specifically if vehicles are required to park elsewhere?
So Daryl has put together a matrix of parking stalls based on what we know of the crowds. We are all still very hesitant to release that information because, again, there is much more review that will be needed. But you know, we do have the list of parking stalls based on the information that we have that, you know, we were able to identify. But as the project of the garage work is going to be approaching more closely, we will be able to distribute that information, and hopefully with a plan on how the alternative parking will be coordinated. For those of you who have lived here in 2013, 2011, 2012, you probably remember when we had to evacuate the entire garage or 600 parking stalls for 3 months. We were able to find alternative parking, which was the financial responsibility of the owners as they were using that parking for those 3 months. That was an alternative that we took at that point. We can select something like this in the future once we have a full definition of not just which parking stalls will be impacted, but you know, what will be the sequence of events, how many of them will be impacted at which time. Because again, frequently it would be the floor and the ceiling of the parking stalls that will be impacted. So, you know, it will take more than one floor at a time.
Okay. All right. What will happen if we go above budget or below budget? Is there a completion guarantee within the budgeted contract value?
Take a stab at this one, and Bruce, maybe you can chime in as you see fit. RDH is managing this entire project for the association, and we are giving the board an update on the budget every other month to just compare how things are going with the trade contracts that are written, with the contingency that's in the project, and overall how the project budget is going. There isn't a guarantee on any of the overall budget. We do have project contracts that are specific to each contractor. And we've got some areas, as I mentioned before, that we've pinned down what their hourly rates will be, or what it will cost to do a particular item, like to replace one of the PT tendons will cost X dollars. And we just don't know how many tendons there will be. So that would need to be replaced if there are any. So we've budgeted accordingly for all of those things, and we're keeping the board apprised of how that is going on an every other month basis, so decisions can be made along the way.
So I guess my part of this explanation is that you can certainly understand that if the requisite guarantee of total completion of a project for a dollar figure, those people who are issuing the guarantee would want a sufficient amount of money to be sure that whatever they encounter is not going to cause them to lose money on the project. So the quick answer to that is getting that kind of a guarantee would be prohibitively expensive. The other thing is with this project is that a lot of the issues are trying to be determined in the scope by understanding the construction, the design, the construction, and the workmanship that was done at the time. The problem is none of it's visible. I mean, or a lot of it isn't visible. I shouldn't say none of it, but a lot of it isn't visible. They've done great work in terms of trying to identify the areas and a comprehensive approach to try and solve this problem. But once they start pulling stuff up, you know, they might encounter a picture that's modestly different. And so that kind of project scope is not going to lend itself to somebody guaranteeing a repair on this kind of project. So that just wasn't available. I'm sure that's the short answer. The other piece that should be understood here is that the board has approached this in any number of ways to begin with, and trying to do it in a way that is consistent with getting quality work that solves the problem at the lowest cost. The other aspect, and I know this relates to the assessments that were identified for this project and that we're all paying for at this point, is that there's a great deal of contingencies that were built into the budget. We're hopeful that when the project is completed and done and we're enjoying the benefit of that it came in much less than anticipated because the contingencies weren't necessary. That's certainly the hope at this point. I think that the contingencies were a smart way for the board and RDH to approach this from a standpoint of saying, we don't want to go back for a second assessment because something else had to be done with the project. So we've approached it from a standpoint that we don't want to go back a second time. So I hope that answers the question.
Next
Thank you.
question.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah.
Well said.
I think so, yeah. Next question is, didn't we just refinish all the patios? Was that work pointless because you are now taking up the patios?
John, I think you already answered that once. We just replaced some of, maybe you could talk through that in terms of what was done previously.
Sure. The recent work was coating patios primarily in the tower. There were some balconies in the podium that had coatings as well. The townhouses that front the canyon, there's only one where work was done, and that was exploratory work. That's Townhouse 10. And that helped us understand what was built and where the waterproofing was originally, and gave us an opportunity to reinstall new products and check the integrity there. So Townhouse 10 patio is not going to be in the scope of work. It's done. The stairs leading to it will be in the scope, and the other patios in the canyon, yes, they're in the scope, and they're still part of the original construction, plus or minus 14 some years old. So right now, there's no areas that we're redoing that were done previously or recently.
So this project is super expensive. If the work cannot guarantee to stop the leakages in the parking, what is the next plan?
Good question. As I had mentioned earlier, again, there's a lot of layers and assemblies there. We're approaching this and in a way that's efficient for time, for materials, for costs. And yes, our plan is to hit all these leaks. It may be that when we're done, something else comes up. There might be a pipe that we discover that has a breach in it that's letting water down. At first blush, it may appear to be the canyon, but if anything comes up, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be there to figure out what happened and resolve it. If it has something to do with the canyon, then yes, you will know about that. But if it's something unrelated, yeah, we'll help you fix it and clarify what's been going on. But yes, we're intending to fix the leaks that are occurring down there.
I think maybe, John, another thing, it was pretty clear when you did your intrusive investigation that not only was there no waterproofing underneath underneath the walls, brick walls and CMU walls, concrete block walls that were on top of the structural foundation. There was no waterproofing there, so water was getting through. So that was clearly a breach of where water could get through into the parking garage. But also you had mentioned in your report that there were several areas where when you pulled up the waterproofing, it wasn't even adhering to the concrete. So clearly there's areas that the waterproofing just isn't either there or it's not working, the waterproofing that is in place. In other areas, it is adhering, but certainly if water can get underneath the waterproofing, that's a problem area. So that in and of itself was the reasoning for taking the more drastic measures of, having to pull up the pavers and pull out the landscaping and pull up the concrete, is because there was no way to predict where the water was getting through the slab. And the waterproofing itself was showing itself to be either not present or not working in numerous areas. So by doing this whole scale repair, that gives the opportunity to look at all of those areas where the concrete needs to be waterproofed and get it done properly. So this is the right way to do it. There are lesser ways to do it, but those would have a much greater risk of having a leak continue to occur. I think this is the best way to limit whatever possible leaks could be going through. As John mentioned, if something does pop up, maybe it's a penetration through an irrigation line or a pipe or something like that that shows itself, those areas would be addressed again from but we'll also be doing a lot of testing prior to that. So I think the process, although not perfect, is certainly the appropriate way to try to address getting it done right this time around. But absolutely nothing is ever perfect. And I wish we could say that it was, but it's never perfect. But this is the right way to get things done when you have to redo something that was not done properly the first time, or not adhering properly the first time.
The only thing I'll add here is that, you know, a lot of times when you're spending a lot of money on something, it's sort of like, okay, if this doesn't work, then what's plan B? But in this case, it's sort of like more so that the biggest part of the problem has been solved. As you said, the known problem. Anything that surfaces beyond this, and I understand that RDH is you know, not wanting to step into the fray of saying, yes, there won't be a water droplet ever again that hits the structure, and understand that they can't do that. But if there is something that surfaces beyond the scope of this project, it's going to be, by comparison, minor, both in terms of the damage that, or the water intrusion, the damage that's being created, and the project it would take to fix it.
Good point. Okay, so the next one is actually just a good comment. People park in the circle area all the time. So that's something that we might have to address.
Just to comment on that, that is actually a fire lane, and not be parking in that area. It is yeah, it's an offense to park within that fire lane. So
I'm sure that's something that Anthony will have to deal with on a daily basis.
Address that.
As much as the association has been dealing with it on a daily basis for the 14 years of its existence, you know, having a towing company, having a ticketing company,
Right.
an employee standing in the roundabout for 2 hours a day, chasing people away. So yeah, it's an amenity in our community. We are all really grateful to have it, but you know, it's a challenge, and unfortunately not many people respect the fire lane. That's the unfortunate.
Right. That's true. Okay, so specifically, how will the company and the concierge staff ensure that additional visitor spots are not taken up by the construction crew?
And that's yet another challenge in our community. We have 377 homes here, and we have 7 visitor parking stalls. And so, and we have, you know, vendors who are working on projects within our community, such as McDonald Miller, such as, you know, fire alarm monitoring company, that, you know, they do park in those parking stalls. And unfortunately, it happened again when we had this large project going on this for the last, you know, year or so, that we have no staging area. So they used one of the parking stalls for staging. We definitely do not want our vendors to be abusing the parking stalls. The concierge staff is monitoring it. So unless there is a specific arrangement made, there will not be vendors parking, you know, vendors associated with this project park in that area, because the concierge is monitoring the parking stalls, you know, regularly, and recording vehicles parking there and making sure that they are registered. If they are not registered, they will be towed. So yes, that will still continue for all of these parking stalls. But yes, it is true that during the last year project, we did have at least one of those parking stalls frequently used for staging.
And I guess I'll add to that, with me being housed at our site office being in that security room right there, I'll be able to see who's coming and going. And if I see anyone from our project or construction staff from other projects, I will immediately address that. And I'm sure Michaela will and her staff will let me know immediately as well.
So the next question is, why are the materials not purchased at the time the project is awarded?
There is a submittal process that we go through. requesting that the contractors show us technical data and things like that on the materials that they will be supplying. Typically, they know all that ahead of time because they will have told us if they're going to request a substitution. So we're asking them to, when we get a contract and they know they're going to do the work based on an intent to proceed, they know they're securing the material. We also go through this process to be assured that the material that is installed is submitted to us so that John and his team can review it and confirm and sign it and say, yep, that is the correct material that's going to be installed on this project. And those are the processes that are typically going through on a large project like this to ensure that somebody doesn't just install material as they wish. There are certain things like the stone that we set up with the mason because it takes such a long time to get that particular stone to just order the stone right away. And so they're in process on that.
How far in advance will you be able to tell which private garages will be affected?
So we are working with Michaela on that. We should know the end of this year at the latest. People will be given notice, well in advance of the start of the 2023 project.
Okay. Can we access the parking levels from the top pot garage?
There is a separate gate. You would have to reach out to the retail management because that is the area that they control. So there is a way there is a separate gate that is in the garage that was specifically designed. So we can exit or enter the residential garage via the top out or the retail garage entry.
I know there are some people that have 2 spots with only 1 car. Could we reach out to those individuals to see if they would be willing to let someone else park there?
Kayla, seems like a.
As Bruce briefly mentioned, we are looking for options. If we can come up with a sequence of parking stalls that we can make available. But we are just starting to look into these options, and that would include reshuffling some of the parking stalls between the unit owners during the time of this project, which would involve reaching out to people who normally only have 1 vehicle on the property and see if we can, if they would be willing to assist with the program. But it will take some time to negotiate it, and again, we might be looking for alternatives such as surface lot in our area somewhere.
Thoughts?
Okay. Having a people mention can't lip read pictures, please show your faces, and great questions, but I can't understand the answers. So just having a few people having some issues understanding what the questions and the answers are. Some residents started a Facebook group called Washington Square Towers. This would be a great venue for residents to share dynamic knowledge in real time. Is there anyone on the board or on the construction company that would be willing to join the Facebook group created for residents?
I'm going to step in on this one right away from a standpoint of we have a very complex project. We have very professional people who are managing as well as doing the project. The communication that needs to be disseminated. We have the homeowners association, which is set up to represent the residents, and that's the proper channel for this. I think the idea of having either the board or the construction company or RDH facilitating communication in any other manner is likely to not be productive. So we have open meetings, we have open communication with all of our residents and owners. And so I would hope that they would direct comments and issues in the channels that are already provided.
How did the building pass construction inspections if waterproofing was missing in certain areas?
I guess what I would say to that is that it wouldn't have been noticeable that it was missing because walls, brick walls, cement block walls would have been placed over top of it, and then the waterproofing going up and up the edge of on the slab and then up the walls. It is under the bottom of those walls where water can get through the top and make its way down the top of the wall and make its way down through the wall and into the slab. And John, maybe you can add some more to that, but essentially I would have thought that that the waterproofing would have gone continuous through the slab and then the block walls be placed first over top of that waterproofing.
We do currently have photos that show that it was not sequenced that way. It shows that the concrete slab is there and then the block wall. So it's a matter of perspective, I guess, of the inspectors that were there on site. But realistically, that's just speculation.
Yeah.
How bad is the leakage? And during the construction, will you guarantee to find out all the root causes of the leakage?
I'll jump in there. In terms of leakage, my experience has been pretty much every underground parking garage leaks in Seattle. And I think yours is not leaking too bad. What our concern has always been is that the water's coming through the canyon and roundabout. It eventually makes its way past a structural slab. And as Paul was explaining earlier, that structural slab has steel in it. And when steel gets wet, or when it gets wet and dry and cycles, it corrodes, and we don't want that to happen. So in terms of water intrusion, I don't think it's too bad, but we're doing a lot of this work to also prevent any future issues, or if some corrosion started, we're going to catch that and repair it and then make it watertight and move forward. So in general, it's not too bad. The other thing that was brought up earlier is that part of this project was various people being out in the canyon and roundabout over the years, looking at how this was assembled, taking photos. RDH has helped out quite a bit over the years. And we went back and looked at some of our documents to see what was there. So at this point, we're pulling together a design that's going to repair where and what we think are all the issues. And absolutely, if we see something that's unusual, we'll call it to your attention, and we'll also have recommendations as well. Certainly not planning on leaving anything there that's going to cause issues down the road. So yeah, we're looking at all items, conditions, and waterproofing it. One thing I just wanted to touch on earlier is, you know, how could somebody miss some of these things? Well, it is a big project, the original construction, and while this project is focused on a specific area, there's still a lot of details. But one thing that I just want to remind you is, and some of this came up earlier, was that the manufacturer's representatives are going to be on site looking at this periodically as well. And that's part of obtaining the warranty, part of making sure this is being installed properly, adhesion tests. So there's a lot of stuff going on, electronic leak detection, to check to make sure that it was installed and that we're not getting leaks. And then even we've been saying RDH as a single entity, and but I just want to point out that the team that you're seeing this evening comes from different groups. So the construction groups, which is everyone else except for me, you know, they're out in the site, but I'm on the design side, and I'll be going out there and doing my own checks as well. And so the point being, you have two different professionals from the same company looking at this project in a different light to ensure that what's being installed is to everyone's benefit, and what was being, you know, what was designed as well as what was paid for. So I don't anticipate anything being missed this time around.
You know, I guess I might add to the thought of how much, how big of a problem is the leaking through the slab. I would say that you guys are very fortunate. You are planning to get on this problem to resolve it before it's a much more serious problem. There is rebar, like John has talked about, which is a thing many people are familiar with, just a piece of steel, you know, a ½ inch around to 3/4 or more in diameter. That's conventional reinforcing steel. But then we also have post-tension cables. And I think several of you are probably familiar with that under a lot of tension. Those are the areas in particular that people all throughout Seattle are the most concerned about. That's why the structural engineer wants to address those, because some of those leak areas are happening at the ends of where these post-tension cables are. And that is a much more serious structural issue. Again, you're getting on it early, which is to your great benefit. And then there are some areas where the water is coming through significantly. You've seen the pans in the ceilings. Some of the residents have been trying, you know, not been able to use their storage room because the water has been that significant. So it doesn't get better over time. So that's why I think it's really so appropriate for you guys to take a look at this in a holistic view and say, if we don't deal with it holistically, it's just going to keep getting worse. And so in that sense, we also deal with a lot of buildings that have more significant problems because they're much older. And you guys are jumping into it much earlier. And it's different when the problem is on a horizontal surface, because water has a tendency to stay there, as opposed to like on the perimeter of your building where water is coming through the sides of the building. There you can do crack injection more effectively, where you have a really hard time trying to do that in a horizontal condition where there's multiple layers, like John had explained to begin the presentation.
That's a good
Next
question. They think it was asked already, where will we be able to access the slides?
I will be providing the PowerPoint presentation that I received in its final format before this meeting, so I can just send it to anybody who wants it, or we can just include it with our next post for everybody who wants to know what happened during the meeting.
Very good. And there was a comment, I'm going to apologize because I'm not sure if I'm going to get this right or not. I'm going to try to get this right. Materials apply. We were going back to like why we're purchasing the materials when we were awarded the project. Materials apply to equipment, not submittals.
Submittals affect equipment, not materials. Is that the
Maybe
question?
that's what it is. Yeah, I'm trying to. Sorry if I got that wrong.
Yeah, no, in the construction business, submittals is things that we are asking the contractors to provide us to confirm what is it that they're planning to supply in terms of materials to the job. submittals could also include things like, we want to do a mock-up of an area to see what the products look like and how they're performing, and to make sure that the installation is being done properly in accordance with the plans and the specs. And so that is a submittal, although it's considered a mock-up submittal. So some of it's terminology, I suppose, from one industry to another, but that is the area where John and his team, who have been involved in the design, will be confirming for the contractors and stamping to say, yes, your materials meet the requirements of the specifications and they're approved to be installed.
And then there was just a couple more, couple more comments about the Facebook group and encouraging people to sign up. And other than that, I think that's all the questions that we've had so far. And sorry, I couldn't get more people to show their faces or speak clearly to those who had issues.
I guess another thing I'd like to add about the Facebook and the group, we're in instances like myself here in my community, we have one and they're great for that. This project is a very technical project, and the RDH team consists more of the 5 that you see here. And having one point of contact such as Michaela lets us distribute that email to the entire team and get as much information as a response to any concerns or questions. And then that way it's disseminated to the entire group of Washington Square of the tenants and residents. So if that helps at all explain our view on communication throughout the project.
And like one person mentioned, not everyone's on Facebook, so emails are sufficient and very detailed with ongoing community information. So if you're on Facebook and want to join, that's great. If you're not, we'll have Michaela has we'll have all the information that we'll be providing to her, and she'll be submitting that to you guys for this project specifically.
I wanted to thank all the homeowners who participated. I really wanted to thank RDH team as well for all of the information provided. You can see that even though this project has been 18 months in planning, we still have a lot of questions. And we will probably organize similar type of meetings as we go through it. Thank you again for everybody who devoted their time. Yes, we will be sending the copies of the PowerPoint presentation to everyone, and we will have the recording of the meeting for anybody who would like to listen.
Absolutely. We look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.